Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And with all this stuff going on with Puffy in the media today, and these court allegations of sexual misconduct, it is amazing how now some of his artists, Mark Curry, Cassie's bodyguard, Puffy's bodyguard, Gene Deal, his other artist, Mace, they're all coming out saying that they knew of all this crazy, egregious behavior that Puffy was doing to Kim Porter, Misha, those two ex-girlfriends, to Cassie, and to several other women throughout his 30-year existence in the music business. And these guys are coming out saying how Puffy is a punk, hitting on women is wrong, and I completely agree with all of that. Domestic violence, DV, men physically and verbally assaulting women is absolutely wrong. I am a middle-aged man. I grew up watching Bad Boy, Death Row, and all these companies come up. I'm in my mid-50s. I have two beautiful daughters, an ex-wife, a mother, and I agree with the things that they're saying. However, what I don't understand, if they were a man's man and Puffy was a bitch or less than a man for what he was doing to these people, to these women, why didn't any of them try to stop him or physically stop him if they saw it, verbally chastise him? Whether you're an employee, a bad boy or not, you should have a moral and ethical conviction on being a good human being. Yes, Puffy could have possibly fired them or whatever, but you have legal contracts, and if he's going to fire you because you are not going along with him whooping on women and beating on women, then you have legal recourse. And they sat around and watched this go on for 25 to 30 years. There's some accountability with his associates that have seen this stuff and that have been around it. And whether you actively participate in a crime or you passively just watch a crime being committed in your presence, to me, you're just as guilty. This same thing was taking place with R. Kelly, with all of the rumor mill and the way that he was canvassing and garnering these young ladies. It wasn't just R. Kelly. He had handlers, managers, assistants, homies that were helping him to preclude these young ladies. And Puffy's situation sounds very, very similar to R. Kelly. You have these older men with these very young women. This brainwashing, this control mechanism that's taking place is almost like these young ladies were handcuffed psychologically, physically, mentally, like a cult. And this went on. R. Kelly's situation and his allegations have gone on since the early 90s. Puffy's allegations have gone on since the early 90s. And I just can't believe that all of these so-called hardcore musicians out of New York and out of Chicago sat around and just watched Puffy completely act like he's some kind of god or deity, and they just turned a blind eye or turned the other way while he was doing all of this. I mean, I know in the black community we have this no snitching rule, but some of them could have secretly went to the feds or to the police, made a statement, got with these young ladies, Kim and Cassie, and built a case against Puffy years ago. But to allow this gentleman, him, R. Kelly, some of these other guys, to just pilferage through the music business and entertainment business and treat these women so poorly, there is responsibility that lies beyond just Puffy. And now everybody wants to talk about it. Even the radio DJs that have kissed Puffy's butt in New York for 30 years, now they're against him. The same way I'm from Chicago, the big radio station in Chicago, GCI, they kissed R. Kelly's butt for 30 years. And then soon as the industry decided to open Pandora's box on the things that R. Kelly and P. Diddy, Puffy have been doing, now everybody wants to jump on. They went on the bandwagon first to support them and to treat them like they were superstars and they did no wrong. And now that the system is coming after them, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon as if they're the worst people in the world, and they knew about these allegations, and they've been hearing this rumor mill forever, but nobody did anything. Whether it's racism, a violent act is being committed, whether you're the perpetrator or you are a silent observer of it, passivity and activity holds the same accountability. There's no different. And Puffy needs to pay the piper, just like R. Kelly. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg on what's going on with Puffy. I think there are going to be criminal charges against him very soon. But now everybody's coming out. And also, with all the years of Puffy not paying these artists and not treating them right, nobody's going to defend Puffy. Sean Puffy Combs is on an island all by himself, like Jeffrey Epstein, like R. Kelly. Epstein's situation was the same way. The sex trafficking of children was going on for decades, and you had these wealthy politicians and everybody that knew all about it. And then when his card got pulled, everybody ran off into the woods and wanted to say that Epstein was a monster, but he wasn't a monster for the first 30 years. Sean Puffy Combs, same way. R. Kelly, the same way. If they were a monster now, they were a monster then. And these young black artists have to understand that when they sign these contracts with labels like Bad Boy, Death Row, Murder Inc., Rough Riders, you should know as you're going into that job and signing that contract that it is not going to be a good contract just in the name of the company versus the traditional white companies like Epic, Motown, Interscope, Universal, Warner Brothers. I'm not saying that all black artists should sign with white record labels, even though they did, because the black labels were just a subsidiary, so they were still signed and had contractual agreements with the white record companies. But just look at the names of these record companies. They don't sound like an honest company. Death Row, Bad Boy. And look what happened to the presidents of those labels. Everybody acts like they're so surprised that Suge Knight is in jail for 28 years and Puffy is on his way to jail. It's amazing. And then in Murder Inc., Irv Gotti, they had a huge federal indictment and they almost went to jail. None of this is surprising. Anybody that utilizes their five senses that God has given them could see that it was a disaster from the very beginning. And basically these black labels were just a front and a money washing grab to exploit young black artists, but they had their hands off by using these subsidiary labels like Bad Boy, Bad Boy, Death Row, Murder Inc., to prostitute these artists financially, mentally, intellectually, and evidently sexually. The writing was on the wall from the very instance that these black labels started to exist. It's not surprising whatsoever. I think the one black label that was very close to a Motown type was LaFace Records. And when you look at Babyface and L.A. Reid, even though L.A. Reid has been accused of some sexual misconduct here recently, but that was with the major record label that he went to after LaFace. Uh, they treated their artists fairly decent. You don't hear Outkast and Goody Mob and uh, even TLC. They signed bad agreements, but all of this other egregiousness was not going on. Usher was signed to LaFace. Uh, that Bad Boy, Death Row. I mean, the stories are so draconian, terrible. Uh, I mean, you. They had situations where even their health and welfare was at risk. Going to the studio beat downs, producers getting beat up, writers getting beat up, artists getting beat up. What kind of work environment is that? It makes not an ounce of ungodly sense. And here again, to have the kind of names that we come up with as African American people, we love to have one foot in the streets and one foot in negativity versus positivity, versus a Microsoft, an Amazon, an IBM, a Cisco Systems type company. The names of these labels are hideous. The way they treated their artists and employees was hideous. Some people lost their lives at work through gun violence and through criminal activity. Who would want to go to work at Microsoft if you had the threat of dying while you're at work? It's the same thing. When you sign a contract to a record label, you are an employee of that label, and you need to be treated with certain levels of respect. There are federal guidelines and state guidelines on how to treat employees, and all of that went out of the window with these black labels. So if you go back and look at the name Bad Boy, what does that mean? Death Row, what does that mean? Who wants to go home and say, Mom, I got a job at Death Row. I got a job at Murder Inc. Listen to the name. We have to wake up as African American people, and you don't see white labels naming their labels Honky Tonk Records and I'm Gonna Kill You Records. You don't see any of that. Why do we as black people have to continuously degrade, love denigration, love living in the mud, love saying that we come from the mud, and love making some money, losing it, and returning back to the mud? No snitching, defund the police. We want to run around as a society, within a society, by our own rules and regulations where there really are no rules. You can kill somebody and get away with it. You can do this to somebody, get away with it. You can steal all that money, get away with it. You can beat on women, get away with it. When are more black people going to start raising their voices and saying enough is enough? Black on black self-hatred is at an all-time high. All-time high. And most elite white folks are not even thinking about middle class, lower middle class, black folks, or white folks. This is a classism issue that's going on in the world today, not so much a race issue. Racism has its tentacles in everything that takes place in politics and business and everything that goes on in America, but it is not at the forefront. This is about monetary gain, monetary value, and power. But black people want to continuously be the ones that I come from nothing and I'll get the bag by any means necessary. We are killing each other morally, ethically, and physically. And it needs to stop. We need to promote education. We need to promote having some sustainability, having some class about ourselves. Please don't start a company called Murder Inc. or Bad Boy. There's nothing positive in the name. Words have power, and we need to know that. So thank you for listening to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. Please hit that like and subscribe button and share this information with people you think will find it informative.